Peace and welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and being a part of the conversation. First and foremost, folks, happy Monday. Let's kick off the conversation as we talk about 1 year after that horrific murder in East Buffalo at the Top Supermarket. We'll talk about what has happened since that patron Gendron, the white supremacist, came into the supermarket in the predominantly black neighborhood, shot and killed 10 people, leaving 3 others injured. We'll talk about this situation 1 year later. Also, let's talk about a House bill that in Louisiana that would allow certain juvenile records to be open, and those juveniles happen to be black. We'll discuss, should these records be open, and what are the implications of that? We'll have that discussion. Later on, we check in with our sister, Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness, as she talks about balancing your life, and more importantly, how black doctors in some counties actually have extended the life of black people. Why isn't this model used around the country? We'll have that and a whole lot more. Stay with us. It's all happening on today's edition of The Culture, right here on the Black Star Network. Let's go. All right, folks, welcome to the culture here on the Black Star Network. I'm your host, Farajii. Thank you so much for tuning in and getting ready to join us for the conversations. First, let's jump right into it. We got to talk about what has happened at the East Buffalo supermarket at Top Supermarket. This is the same supermarket where that racist massacre took place 1 year ago on May 14th, 2022, when a white supremacist walked into the market and shot and killed 10 people, injuring 3. Now, it has been a year, and East Buffalo, that community, a predominantly black community, has not recovered since. And so we wanted to take a moment to reflect on what has happened, not just in East Buffalo, but also what has happened around the larger conversation about white supremacy. Here to give us his insight is my brother who joins us on Mondays here on The Culture. He serves as a lecturer for the African American Studies Department at the University of Maryland. And I'm very, very happy to have him join us today, Dr. Jason Nichols. Doc, good afternoon. How are you, bro? How are you? Oh, I got you on mute. There we go.
I'm doing well, brother. How are you?
I'm good. Let's talk about what happened. Of course, we know the story. Peyton Gendron. He was the white supremacist who went on a social media page, a couple of social media pages, and basically narrated what he was planning to do, and he did it. He killed 10 people in East Buffalo at the Top Supermarket, injuring 3, and destroying and shattering any sense of security and calm within that community. And at the same time, he exacerbated all of the other stuff that the community has been challenged by, whether it's unemployment, whether it's access to resources like the Top Supermarket, which sits in the center of that community in East Buffalo. But it shows that even 1 year later, that community has yet to truly recover from the massacre, the pain that Peyton Gendron has imposed upon this group. Let me ask you this though, bro. This conversation was a lot of times we talked about it. There was a gun discussion. There was a white supremacy discussion because of where Peyton Gendron came from. But what do you think that this community can start moving forward? How can we assist this community and get into a better place?
Well, I think there are structural issues in a lot of urban black communities, particularly, ones that have higher rates of poverty. I think that we need to get the resources that you were referring to and make sure that those resources remain in the community. There shouldn't be just one grocery store in the entire black community in Buffalo, in my opinion. I think there should be options, that would better health outcomes, that would better our children's health. I think so. We need to actually get to those resources. As far as the security, I'm for lawful gun ownership. I'll be honest with you. I'm okay with that. I don't think that that should be the issue in this particular case. I don't think we need to be carrying guns everywhere to keep ourselves safe. I think we do need to start talking about the radicalization of lots of young men, particularly young white men, online. Some of what we've seen in terms of whether it's El Paso, whether it's Tree of Life, whether it's Allen, Texas, or whether it's Buffalo, we've seen either immigrants or Latinos or Black people being targeted because people have been radicalized online. Sometimes it's lone wolves, and occasionally it can be more organized attacks. So we've got to do something about the radicalization of people online. That doesn't mean banning things. That means making sure that good information is there to challenge whatever it is, the bad information that people get that can actually radicalize them, radicalize men who feel disenfranchised. And we've seen that amongst white men recently over the last 20 or 30 years. There's been this kind of disenfranchisement and victimization. And we know that that actually is what grew the MAGA movement,
Right.
is feeling disenfranchised, feeling like it's no longer your country. And again, they're trying to take the ways that we've traditionally battled that with education in the classroom. They're trying to take that away. So we have to find other ways, more creative ways to get at young people and make sure that they have good information and become good citizens no matter what their racial background or gender is.
No, absolutely. I want to throw something up there because some folks, Doc, might be asking, like, okay, it has been 1 year. I've been reading a number of stories where residents have explained that after all of the cameras and the lights and the attention has died down from the massacre, the community is still left in ruins. And I'm wondering two things. One is that when there are tragedies of this magnitude, national tragedies, and this is considered to be one of the most brazen, this is what I read from the New York Times, it said one of the most brazen racially motivated hate crimes in American history. But when you have something of this magnitude, on top of all of the other social challenges that you talked about, um, should there be the expectation that because this hate crime took place in this neighborhood, in this area, that some other stuff that have been long-standing systemic issues will at least be addressed? Should we as Black folks have that expectation?
I think we should. We're citizens, and we pay into this country. We are part of what makes this country great. We built the country. So absolutely, we should expect that our citizenship buys us equal protection. And that's what the Constitution says. So absolutely, we should be looking for resources. Absolutely, we should be looking for anything that any other community gets. So we should be looking for, jobs, housing, security, all of the things, the basic needs that any human being and certainly every citizen should get. That's very fundamental to who we are and to our citizenship as Americans.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The other thing is that as we talk about what happened 1 year later, Brother Jay said, no, it doesn't look like white supremacy or these type of acts are actually dying down. There was I saw some video of some white supremacists marching on the Capitol over the weekend, right?
Yeah.
Face mask on, walking along in the Capitol space in Washington, D.C. And, one of the big things that we're seeing is that hate crimes in this country has actually gone up, according to FBI statistics and other statistics. Hate crimes are going up. So can we say that we have learned anything? Has the United States government have done enough to address this issue?
I don't think they have. We've talked about it. If you look at 2020, under Donald Trump, the Department of Homeland Security said that white supremacy was the biggest domestic terror threat that we had in this country. That's not under Joe Biden. That's under Donald Trump. Ken Cuccinelli, who was a dyed-in-the-wool MAGA person, confirmed that whether it was a lone wolf or more organized efforts, that white nationalists and white supremacists were a major threat to our internal security. They yet have not done a lot. I understand that there are concerns in terms of making sure that you're not tracking people all the time, or that you're respecting people's freedoms and their constitutional rights to privacy. But when you put things online, then that's not a private space. We all know that. That's a
Right.
public space. That's a public square. I think anything you invite from there is on you. And I think that I don't know whether it's that there are people in Congress who are afraid to step up. They're afraid of the attacks from the right-wing media. I'm not sure. And I will sit here, as I've said to you several times, that, and I'm in it. I know the right-wing media ecosystem is so much stronger than the left. They say this, the left-wing media, the blah, 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 the legacy media, but their media ecosystem is so much stronger. From the grassroots level, the AM radio level, all the way up. They dominate the media and create the media narratives. And I think that a lot of left-wing politicians, both at the local, state, and federal level, don't want to act on these things. And what they could do if they did act on it is save lives. So I think we need to start acknowledging when we have a problem. You mentioned Patriot Front, the group that just marched on the Capitol. And yet, I can tell you, if you go on any of these, conservative networks, they're making fun of Joe Biden for mentioning it during the commencement speech at Howard University.
Right.
So I think there's stuff that we
Right.
and we Black people, sometimes I understand we don't have to be pro Biden. I'm not pro Biden, to be honest with you. But I think there are times when there's a narrative out there, and someone like Joe Biden, someone with the power that Joe Biden has, or Kamala Harris, or one of our senators actually speaks to this threat, regardless of their race or whatever, actually speaks to the fact that we've seen people massacred in churches, we've seen people massacred in shopping markets, we've seen people massacred in synagogues, that they should step up. We need to circle the wagons. And this is why we need a stronger media ecosystem. But at the same time, we need to start circling the wagons and saying, no, they're right about that.
Absolutely.
But I think a lot of times, because Joe Biden is old, we sit there and we let it go whenever he gets attacked. And because Joe Biden has said racist things in the past, that's a fact. You know what I mean? We just kind of let it go. And I think sometimes we need to say, no, the president is right.
Absolutely. Folks, as we talk about this, a couple of things that we need to keep in mind. One is that the gunman, of course, we know Peyton Gendron, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. This was back in February. Proceedings for his federal charges are still pending after he pleaded not guilty to 27 charges, including several counts of hate crimes resulting in death. Last week, New York Attorney General Letitia James, she filed a lawsuit against the gun accessory manufacturer, Mean Arms, the company that made the piece that made it easy for Peyton to modify and make his AR-15 rifle deadlier. So that's on that front. Then a day later, family members of the three of the victims filed a separate wrongful death lawsuit in the state of New York Supreme Court against several social media sites, including Facebook, Snapchat, Discord, and Reddit, like you mentioned, the conservative networks. The case alleges that Gendron was radicalized by the algorithms behind the social media products he used, that he fed himself anti-Semitic and violent content.
Yeah.
And as we close out on this discussion, it will possibly open up the door, could possibly open up the door for him to be in a state of insanity because of the algorithms.
I mean, that's absurd.
That would be absurd because we all are subjected to the algorithms.
We're all subjected to that.
You know what I'm saying? And none of us, a lot of us aren't shooting people up in the name of the algorithms. So we will have to see. Folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's shift gears and let's go down to Louisiana to talk about how they are putting state representatives, state lawmakers are saying that juvenile records need to be open for Black juveniles and the cost of doing such a move. Folks, we'll have the discussion of should juveniles records be open in those areas where violence reigns supreme. Stay with it. That discussion continues. That discussion will happen as we move forward here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA, and this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together, so let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show. All right, let's go back to the discussion as we talk about what's happening in the state of Louisiana. I got to bring you guys up to speed on this as we talk to Dr. Jason Nichols, my brother from the University of Maryland. Here's the situation, folks. There's a House bill right now, House Bill 321. And take a look at this. I want to throw this up here on the screen so y'all can see who's and what is going on down in Louisiana. And if you're in like Baton Rouge, if you're in Shreveport, this is very important. If you got family down there, this is very, very important. But take a look. House Bill 321, which would open up court records for minors as young as 13 in Cato, Orleans, and East Baton Rouge parishes. It passed the chamber on a 63-36 vote on Thursday, according to the publication The Advocate. According to the report, State Representative Debbie Vallejo, a Republican from Kenner who sponsored the legislation, said it was about public safety, contending that it aimed to reduce crime in Louisiana parishes with the highest rates by promoting greater transparency. Now, here's the thing. Take a look at this second quote. This proposal here by Vallejo would require the three municipalities to develop publicly accessible electronic databases linked to the Attorney General's office website containing minute entries, minute entries from juvenile court proceedings. The three parishes were reportedly the bill's target due to their high crime rates, with Vallejo citing a dramatic increase in gun violence in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Shreveport in recent years. All right, let me go back to my brother, Jason Nichols, Dr. Jason Nichols, as we have this conversation, because these are three Black areas of Louisiana. and they're talking about opening up juvenile records, something that we don't normally do in the court of law. You know, it's not public information. Who is a juvenile? It's just not the type of way. But now this bill, Doc, it's getting passed, and it looks like it may be the case that these records may be open. The problem is these are records of Black juveniles, no other juveniles. So these are records of Black juveniles. So what are we seeing here right now? Is this going to create a real? It is creating some controversy, but I'm saying if we open up these records for juveniles, for Black juveniles, what could potentially be the downfall of this?
So first of all, we have to remember that a lot of states haven't banned the box, so they may struggle with getting employment. And one of the things we know is that if you banned, and I always try to tell my conservative friends this, is if you banned or you started to keep people's juvenile records open, if you kept people's juvenile records open, you wouldn't have a Ben Carson, that guy y'all love so much. Ben Carson was a juvenile thug criminal. You know what I mean? But yet,
wow.
But the thing is, he never got stigmatized as such. That's how he was able to become a neurosurgeon later on in life. This is why other people who have had juvenile records, I think about one of my brothers, a guy named Jack Monell, professor at Winston-Salem State University. That guy is beloved on that campus, absolutely beloved. He has changed so many lives, and the first life he changed was his own. He spent his youth incarcerated at Spofford and at a couple other youth detention centers and youth jails in New York State and in New York City. And he changed his life around, and now he is a tenured college professor. We can't stigmatize our young people, because then they start thinking, hey, I am what my record says I am. Not those were errors of my youth and I can change. So this is a terrible piece of legislation that's going to hurt a lot of Black young people. It's going to get them in a cycle of crime and poverty. And I hope that, you know, at the state level, I believe the governor, of Louisiana, I don't know if he can intervene, but if it's still John Bel Edwards, he's a Democrat. He should be able to step up and say that this is not something that we should be allowing. We should let children develop into adults without stigmatizing them for something they did when they were 13 or 14 years old.
So that opens up the door. Representative Edmund Jordan, a Democrat from Baton Rouge, said, let's be real. We know what this is about. If you're from Baton Rouge, if you're from Shreveport, if you're from New Orleans, you should be offended by this, because this is about race. This is about race. This is not about transparency as much to stigmatize, as you mentioned, bro, to stigmatize these young people. And that's the part. It reminded me of when we have like a sex offense registry, and you know, like if we start to open up the juvenile records, man, I mean, that should be across the board, for one. But then two, you're going to once again stifle a whole generation for the stupid things and the illogical things that we do when we're young. And that's not fair. And I don't care what cancel culture and all of this other stuff that we put on people. Look, folks, you do not get through life clean. You make silly choices, you make stupid mistakes, but I truly believe that everyone can redeem themselves if they want to redeem themselves.
Absolutely. Let me tell you something. For all of us and for the Black community, we know this more than others. You don't get a Malcolm X without juvenile crime. You know, Malcolm X committed all kinds of crimes up until he was 25. And then he went to prison, and then he changed his life around. If we threw him away, if we stigmatized him for the rest of his life and said, you're not worth anything because you committed crimes early on, then we would miss out on Malcolm X. So let's think about this and think about, hey, how can we, this shouldn't be the conversation. The conversation should be, how can we rehabilitate these kids? How can we turn a kid who committed a crime at 13 and make him into a productive adult once he's paid his debt. That should be the discussion. How can we overcome the challenges of poverty, mental health, many of those things? But again, in our society, we just think punitively, and sometimes we think if you've committed a crime at one point, then you should be punished for it for the rest of your life, even if it's not a murder or a rape. And I think that that is a bad way of thinking.
Absolutely. I know, Mike, you got to jump off, and I want to just share with you what some of the crew members are saying about this new piece of legislation. Pauline, you checked in, my sister. You said, what do these people do? Stay up all night trying to see how they can screw us? Sickening. Right. They just, they thinking of a master plan. Let me see how to hold the black man and black woman back. Pretty Brown Mimi 726. You said this Louisiana proposal is racial profiling, just racist. Absolutely. Jacqueline Boateng. Jacqueline, you checked in and said, they know it will hurt black people. Cruelty is the main point. Hurt to control and restrict. Absolutely. And see, this is what we call systemic racism, folks. This is systemic racism. This is the stuff that holds you back. We might say, oh, we're not racist. Things are post-racial, blah, blah, blah. But when you go for a job, or when you're trying to get a house in a certain neighborhood, who's to say they won't pull up your juvenile records and be like, well, you have a tendency to steal, so you have a tendency to hurt people. Oh, I see that you didn't murder somebody, but you had some friends, so that means birds of a feather flock together. So you're a murderer by association. I mean, people make all types of stuff. Doc, I know you got to hop off. What's the one thing that we could do in making sure that none of this goes national? Like, we may not see other attempts in other states start to open up black juvenile records.
I think we got to vote. That's the main thing. And we've got to put this on the agenda and say, look, you have to oppose this. You need to speak out on it. That's the best way to challenge this thing. It's not just to sit here and expect things. It's to put pressure on our elected officials and then to go out and make sure that our voices are heard at the ballot box.
There it is. My brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, lecturer of the University of Maryland, African American Studies Department. Thank you, big bro. God willing, we'll reconnect with you next week.
You already know.
And keep the power on Newsmax, man.
Will do.
Y'all know Dr. Jason be on Newsmax in some of these conservative spaces, so we gotta send our brothers thoughts and prayers to keep it good and keep it authentic for the culture.
No doubt, brother.
I appreciate you. All right, folks, we gotta take a quick pause. When we come forward, let me get more of your thoughts around this latest piece of legislation coming out of New Orleans, as state lawmakers are looking to open up the juvenile records of black juveniles who have committed some sort of crime, some sort of violation. What do you think? This level of stigma, or is this transparency? Stay with us. The conversation will continue here on The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol,
we're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear. Black Star Network is here.
A real
momentum we have now. We have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network. All right, folks, welcome back to the show. First, big shout out to my culture crew. Love them. Love y'all, man. I love you. Telling you, I'm loving y'all, man. For real. Big shout out to ain't nobody. Look, this is the best group. I'm telling you. I know what y'all saying. Y'all the best group of digital participants, watchers, your investors. Best group. Hands down. Y'all get into some great conversations. Y'all support us. Y'all support the platform. Y'all support the shows. Y'all support me. Look, big shout out to all of my culture crew for their support. Hey, look, we are having a conversation talking about what's going on down in Louisiana, what's going on with these bills that would allow juvenile records to be open. And the thinking behind putting forth legislation in this policy to open juvenile records, which has normally been closed, especially to public eyes, is because one state representative, Debbie Vallejo, has said that she wanted to ensure greater transparency around the issue, as we're seeing different parishes in Louisiana experiencing high crime. More juvenile justice, more juvenile violence, more gun violence. And so she's trying to let people know, basically, who the perpetrators may be. Now, I'm asking the question, should juveniles records be open? But I think we should have another follow-up question. Is this an issue of stigma, or is this about transparency? Now, my brother, Dr. Jason Nichols, who was with us for a few moments, just made the point. If you had opened up the juvenile records of the great ones that came before us in the struggle for liberation in this country, say of Malcolm X, we would not have a Malcolm X. We would not be so accepting and, more importantly, so loving of having a Malcolm X, because that part of his story would have been told. And we may not have gotten as far as we gotten with him. So this is very, very interesting. My other concern is every time I hear about these conservative views, or anytime I see things like this happen, I'm concerned of that this may spread out to other parts of the country. That says some other states that say, you know what, we have high crime too. So let's start to open up the records. Let's make sure that people know exactly who's playing with their children, or who's in their neighborhoods, or who's going to these schools, because we want to create transparency, all in the name of public safety. It's called systemic racism, folks. All right, let's go to you. Let me see what we got here. Sandy, you checked in. You pointed out, you said my community has a problem where all the advocates are in their late 70s, and there wasn't a push to get younger, more energetic members to groups like the NAACP. Wow, there it is. That's facts. That's facts right there, Sandy. If we're trying to get young people involved in the social justice, the liberation struggle, the civil rights struggle, because we still got a civil rights problem in this country, folks. So the civil rights struggle never really ended. Can we say that? The civil rights struggle didn't end because of some changing of the clock, or because we were allowed to get a little bit more gains under that movement. There's still a civil rights struggle in this country for Black people. There's still a human rights struggle for Black people, in this country. So that has never died. So to your point, Sandy, you're right. There needs to be some fresh energy. Younger folks are for the war. Elders are for the advice, or for the counsel, or for to guide us to make better decisions, to be more strategic on how to navigate through these systems that are hell-bent on destroying us. That's just what it is. These systems are hell-bent on keeping us back, destroying us, and we know that we're better than that. We know that this is our time. So we can't be afraid to push back against some of these things that we're seeing. All right, Tiana, my sister, you check it in. You said, in every southern state is waiting to make a law similar to this mess. I need Black folks in the South to start getting their people registered to vote and get them to the polls. I hear you. Me too. But first, how about this, Tiana? How about Black folks in the South start getting upset that this is happening, since nearly 60% of us live in the South of the United States right now? If you got all them Black people in the South, and you got these type of laws cropping up, along with stand your ground, along with all of the other stuff that we've talked about. I'm just connecting the dots here, folks. Then how about we get upset? Black folks got to get upset. When are we like full-blown upset, pissed off to the point we say, I can't take it no more? Just as much as we say, I can't breathe, when are we going to say, I can't take it no more? All right, take a look. Conscious Thought, my brother, you checked in. I know Thought had to jump off. But Thought said, when in the hell are we going to realize that we are already at war? When in the hell are we going to realize that we are already at war? Some of us don't believe it. Some of us think that we're going to just go along to get along, that we don't rock the boat, that things will work out. It will all straighten itself out in the end. That's not the case, folks. That's not the case. I'm sorry. We've made some gains, but look at the boldness. Look at how some of these folks just don't have no filter. They are just, at this point, just showing their hatred for us and their disdain for our rise, and just and it gets under their skin. I'm not saying all of them, all white people or all Black people. I'm talking about those in positions of power. We in a serious situation. I'm with Thought on this. We at war. We at war with trying to keep our history intact. We at war in the school system. We at war now to try to keep our past in the past, right? Imagine if you did something years ago, and I'm sure some of we don't come from we didn't all drop from heaven. So we might have did something before, but then we redeem ourselves. We were exposed to something that inspired us to change our lives, and now we're on the better track. We have families now. We have businesses now. We are in charge of political and social organizations. Some of us even became pastors. Some of us became lawyers and doctors, but we had a troubled past. We came out of dysfunctional homes. Let's not sugarcoat it. Lana, my sister Lana said, stop sugarcoating where we are in this country. We can't sugarcoat it. Yeah. We went to the Getty Center, celebrating Mother's Day, celebrating the beautiful Nera, who is the mother of my children. And we went to the Getty Center. And they had this exhibition in the Getty Center of these two fantastic photographers. And anytime you get to see Black folks in pictures, just look at it. Next time y'all go to any museum that has Black exhibitions, and I would highly recommend that you do so, just go into the picture. Take a moment to really reflect on what you see. I've seen some dope pictures. I took some pictures in the museum, and I see in our eyes, our skin, our facial expressions, you can feel, you can see the weight, the burden of living under the system of oppression, and how even in the pictures, you can still see this level of resilience that you say, I'm not going to let this thing ball me up, or not going to let this thing break me. There's this resilience, there's this resolve, there's this enduring spirit about Black people in this country, that regardless of what we go through, we're going to come out of it with great substance, right? And that's what we need today. We don't need weakness. We don't need meekness. We need strength. We need to have so much love for ourselves that it can be the sustaining shield against the hatred that's coming from other people, whether it's white people, whether it's whoever the case may be, or it may be coming from our own people. But we need to tap into that part of ourselves, because we are at war, folks. This is not just something, and I know some folks say, oh man, this is, and I hate putting the narrative like this, but sometimes you need this narrative to kind of wake people up. We talk about if somebody did this to my family, we talk about all these things, but when you look at the stories that we've been covering on here, from what happened to Jordan Neely to now the situation in Louisiana. I mean, we're getting hit left and right, up and down, body shots, stomach shots, getting knocked in the chest. We're taking the hits right now. And how are we going to fight back? What is going to be the way that we fight back? So as we look at this situation, down in Louisiana, I want people to get upset. I remember I saw a couple of folks say, you get emotional, Farajii. Why shouldn't we get emotional? It hurts me. It breaks my heart, folks, that we are at a place that we can't even get emotional. We try to let's keep calm, and let's simmer down here, and let's no, man, you got to get upset. You mean to tell me that you're not upset about the ongoing attacks against our own humanity? Is that where we are in 2023? We can't get upset if somebody's knocking us in the head. We can't get upset if somebody trying to erase us out of history. We can't get upset that somebody want to dig in the past to determine our future. We can't get upset. Shit. Danita, you said agreed, Farajii Muhammad. What the hell is going on? Not enough for upset. This is ridiculous. I don't believe we have ever not been at war. We just have been reloading it. Time to start blasting. We got to. Let me tell you, man, this thing is ongoing. It is ongoing. Look, I got to take another pause because I'm getting upset just thinking about the fact that we ain't getting upset enough. I'm really serious. Like, we need to get upset. It's okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to not be at peace. It's okay to feel disturbed, because that's natural. Any other group of people that have undergone or would have undergone some of the attacks that we have undergone, they'd be ready to just go explode on everybody. But we got to hold it in. That's not healthy, and I refuse to do it. I'm not going to go into a marketplace and just blow myself up. But at the same time, I'm going to use the God gift that he blessed me with, which is my voice. And I'm going to use this platform that we have, that we've been blessed to have, and we're going to make some noise. We can't stay quiet. We can't stay quiet when they are attacking us from left, right, up, down, inside, out. We can't stay quiet. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, let's switch gears. Let's talk about reclaiming our wellness. We'll check in with our sister, Dr. Bridget, MD, and continue to have the conversation. Stay with us. It's The Culture on the Black Star Network.
Hi, Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture, weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
All right, folks. Time for us to check our health and well-being. So it is Monday, and we check in with our sister, Dr. Bridget Cole-Williams, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. Dr. Bridget.
Yes. Hi, Farajii, how are you? You're a little heated, so
I am a little heated. I'm a little heated, Doc. I'm a little heated. Look, you work in a space. You're at the intersection of a lot of different spaces, right? You're Black, you're a woman, you're a doctor, family doctor, you're a cannabis expert. I mean, you're part of the hip hop generation. I mean, you are like the intersection of so many different things, right? And so when I have conversations about some of the stuff that we talk about, it just blows me away that people are like, stay calm. And it's like, come on, man. Dr. King there were days Dr. King got upset. Right. All Black leaders get upset. And it's like, it's okay. It's really okay. Now, here's the thing, though. How do you handle that emotion? Mm-hmm. And as a doctor, you know that best, that there's a positives and there are negative ways to handle any type of emotions, pain, anger. So, it's just one of those things that, for me, that we do have to do some things differently, because at the end of the day, our children's future depends on it.
Not only that, but I think our children are watching.
Right? Ooh, I love it.
And I'm very much aware that, yes, we've gotten great strides by being calm and being peaceful. However, to be honest, sometimes you need to have that blow up too. And I say that because this brings me back to a conversation that I had with my daughter this week. And she even said to me, sometimes you got to let them know.
Whoa.
And this is my 18-year-old. And I was, when your kids start preaching to you, it sticks, right? And so I think we've been taught to stay calm and to not be intimidating but sometimes you do have to let them know. And I don't think there's anything more it's the yelling, the aggressive, that is not what is intimidating. That may cause fear. It may people pull back. But I don't think there's anything as intimidating by articulating what you want and where they're at fault, and then giving them the expectations of what you want to see happen. And I think that is more intimidating than anything else. And it's not necessarily staying calm. I'm not even a big fan of that, because I think you have the right to express emotion, but I don't think anything is more intimidating by than articulating what is about to happen.
All right, so I know this is not on the agenda for us to talk about, but I do want. But I mean, trust me, hey, yo, when I tell you Dr. Bridget know a lot of stuff about health and wellness, the sister knows a lot of stuff. Every time I text her, Doc, what about this? She's like, yeah, I was just on a panel and just talking about this. Like, what the hell? But I do want us to, like when you're dealing with the level of systemic racism, when you're dealing with all of these things and you hold this stuff in, what does that do to the mind and to the body? Like seriously. Like if you're going through 20, 30 years, and I'm putting this in a very specific context. Mm-hmm. Some of us, either we are or we have come from spaces where those who are the breadwinners, those who are the leaders of the household, they take so many hits for 20, 30, 40 years at the job from various places, various forces, right? And they come home and they try to maintain a proper, a balanced household, a peaceful household. But when you are taking that many hits, what does that do to the mind and to the body and to the overall spirit of Black people? What have you seen in your experience, Doc?
Absolutely. So when we are not allowed to express our emotions and we push down emotions over and over and over again, it is a stressor on our body that is nearly cancerous. And I'm not being light about that, right? That it chemically starts to change our body. When we're playing over negative situations in our brain over and over again, our brain doesn't always know that this is just your thought. When there are intense emotions and you're acting this out in your brain, many times those emotions are very real, as if it happened or is happening again. This is why PTSD is, and I feel like we talk about this more and more, right? That it is literally your brain is having this experience again as if it was in reality. And so what that does to not just your body, but your spirit, it becomes like a chronic illness within your body that literally can change not just how you interact with certain people or situations, but how you have your different interactions in every aspect of your life. And so we have to, and I think this is sometimes why we do not always communicate well as Black people, because we live in a world where we're taught to push down and suppress. When I talk to former prisoners, that survival is pushing down and suppressing emotion, because if you're wiling out in prison, you might not ever get out alive, right? And so they learn to ignore, push down, and keep moving. Those same behaviors continue when they get out of prison, but the rest of the world isn't necessarily corresponding with that. And that's what leads to these aggressive blowups and aggression and really not solving your problems well, right? You end up just having a lot of anger that you live with in every aspect of your day. So I highly recommend for people to find ways to not just change the energy, exercising, what have you, which is actually really helpful, getting out that energy, but learning to express what you need to let someone know in an effective way so that you get the results that you're looking for. Expressing in a way where you don't get your results, doesn't help that much, right? But if you're able to express in a way where you get the results you're looking for, now you're solving problems. And so I think I think this is an important conversation, because I often look at us in society and I feel I'm looking at more and more young people that are living through their trauma on a daily basis. Sometimes they startle easily, right? They are angered immediately with the slightest thing. They take offense with like the just the way someone looks at them. This isn't, you know, we often look at this being poor upbringing, poor behavior. That's nothing but trauma. And I often have people come to me. I do a lot of medication management for the very young, for children. And I have families come in and say, well, put them on some pills. I don't like the way she was acting the other day. No, it's called trauma. That's not giving someone pills to suppress it. It's giving them love and attention and consistency and discipline and giving them the opportunity to express it effectively. And that's not kids, those are adults too. So let it out, Farajii.
No, that is heavy. Very quickly before we take our next pause, Sandy checked in and said, Mr. B talking about our great brother, Dr. Mr. Harry Belafonte. She said, Mr. B talked about how when Black people are not able to express ourselves because of oppression, it carries over to our children.
It does. It does.
So that really happens that you can, what do you pass it on because they're in the same household? How does that generally happen?
How I deal with conflict and issues, like I said from the beginning, our children are watching. My children learn to deal with conflict and issues in the same way. And when we talk about generational trauma, it's such a coin word right now, right? A coin phrase, but you're literally teaching trauma to our children, how we function, how we deal with things, how we look at things, how we respond to things. And we need to do better. But it starts with ourselves. You know, I get so aggravated. I had a young girl come in the other day, and you could just filled with trauma and horrible experiences, and the guardian wanted her on medication. And the girl didn't even want to, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Her head was down. And I said, you know, if you don't want to be on meds, I'm not going to put you on meds. And I was like, and I'm going to tell you, I have a lot of kids who come in here for a lot of different problems. I need to talk to you because the problem is sometimes the adult. And then she kind of looked up and started just very slowly, started just being willing because she realized that she had an ally. And, you know, I think we're strong. We're, you know, strong Black people. We deal with everything. We can confront anything. We're resilient, what have you. We all need allies. We all need allies.
Oh man. Real Brooklyn, you checked in and said we have no outlet. Many of my friends do not have an outlet when frustrated. Being active and doing something constructive can be a stress reliever. Who wants to think about people who hate us all day? There's a fine line, and I agree with Real Brooklyn on this. We need an outlet. We need to have a strong support system that is going to empower us and not break us down. We need to figure out some self-regulation of doing things that will get us back into a more balanced state of mind. And no, I don't want to think about people who hate me all day. I think this is one of the key problems in the Black liberation struggle. We want to talk about the people and the forces and the systems and the institutions that hate us all day. I can't do it, folks. I can't do that. I can't live in pain and fear and anger, wake up with that, go to bed with that, somebody after me, the white man don't want to see me rise, the system's good. I can't all day. I can't do it, man. I can't do it.
I think what's really important with that is because we get caught into that. It is depressing. It's overwhelming. It's debilitating. It can slow down your growth. And the one thing that, you know, and I do life coaching, and I have clients of all sorts of different levels and experiences and situations. One thing that I really push, and I do it for myself, is that I change the narrative. I decide what my truth is. Like, I decide the emotion should not run us. We have choices constantly. And when I first started doing this work, I was like, no, it is what it is. Like, I can't change. You can change how you see things. You can change the narrative. And so many times in the cases like you're talking about right now, I don't focus on the people that hate me. I feel bad for the people that hate themselves because they have the issue. They're trying to make it my issue. And I won't allow that. I won't allow that because it's horrible if you're focusing on people hate. I feel bad for the people that hate themselves.
That's a word. That's a word. I feel bad for the people who hate themselves. Man, oh man. Look, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, Dr. Bridget is also going to talk to us about how we can extend our longevity in life and talk about this phenomenon, how in some counties in the United States where Black doctors reign supreme, where we find ourselves to be the most predominant, Black people are living longer. The problem is, how come this model isn't duplicated all over the country? Stay with us. We'll have those discussions and, of course, hear from you, our culture crew. So stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in Black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shots.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. We are checking in with our resident doctor here, Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness. And Dr. Bridget just breaking it down for us, talking about how we can change the narrative when it comes to our own health and wellness, dealing with oppression and racism and all of those isms, how we can change it. Now, this actually goes into one of the things that you wanted to bring to our attention, Doc, which is this idea of longevity. Yes. I want to start there. Absolutely. Because right now I think we're all kind of seeking. It's interesting. I'm coming across a lot more sisters. Now, this is in my conversations with women, I'm coming across a lot more sisters who have decided to take their health and wellness into their own hands. They're not waiting on doctors. They're like, I'm going to do stuff that is going to extend my life. More important, stress relief is going to extend my energy, making strengthen my energy. This idea of longevity. I see sisters doing yoga, meditation. I see sisters talking about prayer, praying more. I see women talking about the importance of being around people of good energy. So there is something that is bubbling, I think, underneath the surface for a lot of us about how we can take this thing that we call life. We're not cats, so we only got this one life to live. But how we can extend it to as far as we can. What are you seeing in your research and talking to your patients and even with yourself?
Absolutely. So it's definitely a question of how long do you plan to live, right? And that is an active question. And when I mean that, what are you going to do about it? That is a call to action. And I think particularly for Black Americans, that this is something that we can't be passive about, because when we're passive about this question, we will ultimately perish earlier than we should. So what you're talking about with women taking their health into their own hands, and I'm seeing some of that with men as well, that they are looking more at doing things that take control of their wellness, because when they are going into the doctor, that's just not happening. And creating healthcare model that fits us as a people is incredibly important. So that's something that we're obviously going to have to talk more about. But some information that we found was that an August 2022 study from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention found that Black Americans' life expectancy declined to about 71 years old in the last 2 years from that. So from 2020. And so that's about 6 years lower than their white counterparts. Now, I'm not so much concerned with them, but I am obviously concerned about how we manage this, because I was actually planning on living beyond 71 years old. And so what do we do about it? So a part of this is that the decline in our life expectancy since really 2019 was largely due to COVID. And so we're talking about a huge number of us that actually perished due to this virus, the same virus that, some news reports, depending on where you get your information, said didn't exist at all. Right. And so I think it was also a huge wake up call for us that if you were not actively pursuing your health and wellness before that, I think I've seen more and more people say, what am I going to do about it? Partly it's due to our distrust of the healthcare system. And I think COVID brought out more of that really amongst everybody during that time. And so what I'm seeing is that people are being more active about their own health. A big part of this was not only COVID, but then drug overdose accounts were nearly half of all unintentional injuries. And so people being distrustful of not just illicit drugs, but pharmaceutical drugs as well, and what that was doing to our communities. So as people are looking at what can we do to make ourselves better, we are deciding that it might not be traditional healthcare. Of course, the other reasons are heart disease, chronic liver disease, cirrhosis, and a small percentage of suicides. I think what was interesting, two things really came out of this. The first one is that if you are living in Virginia, in Manassas Park, or if you are in Weld County, Colorado, the mean life expectancy for Black residents is 96 years old.
Wow.
Huge. I mean, people are probably packing their bags right now, right?
Wow.
So if you are there, then you're probably doing well. Black people that are living in their 80s in large Democratic jurisdictions or incredibly small Republican jurisdictions as well. So that was Montgomery County, Maryland, and Collier County, Florida. So I'm definitely curious, with what the chat is saying about that and where people are living. Because, and basically what we're talking about is areas that are less divisive, right? That you're probably feeling safer and less stressed, because you're talking about areas where there's probably either a larger, also relaxed and Black population, or a less racist community, to be totally honest with you. And so the impact of racism and those type of stress literally changes your life, and it can kill you. So those are things to actually look at, and to be able to look at where, so it's not just you know, how we live, it's where we live that can make a big difference.
Wow, well, I want you. We got to stop right there, because I want us to kind of like really marinate on that.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about how you live, but it's also about where you live.
Mm-hmm.
That can affect our health and life expectancy.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I'll be honest, the last week I've had, you know, I'm in Ohio, where it's not on the good list. Let me just say that, right? As far as places that are good for life expectancy for Black Americans, but particularly in this area, there are definitely pockets that are more stressful for Black people than others. And I've been having conversations with Black people living in those areas and what their experience have been and how they're living with it, and how they have, we will live in the most ridiculous situation, but we're so resilient, and we kind of turn into our support systems, but it still has a huge effect on our health. And I think it's important to take that seriously. You know, there's sometimes we live in areas that we have to live in, but that's not always the case. And there are things that we can do to try to change that. Another piece of this was actually, believe it or not, that people with low Black life expectancy actually had religious church memberships. I know. So take a minute on that one. So,
So I say it again. People with lowest Black life expectancy
had religious memberships.
They were a part of an institution, a faith institution.
Now, it's not what you think. It's not because
I'm about to say, because this doesn't sound good for the church and the mosque and every place else.
But it obviously stopped me in my track. I read this like 3 times to make sure I understood. And basically what it comes down to is that people that had great involvement in their churches tended to be more obese, basically. And with obesity being one of the biggest associations with death, and with African Americans having the greatest, having the highest number of obesity, particularly obese women, it had a factor. The other part of this is actively pursuing aspects of your health, and as opposed to, you know, let Jesus take the wheel. And look, Jesus takes my wheel hopefully every day, but I still got to get out and do what I need to do for my own health, right? So I thought that was just an interesting part of it that kind of caught me off guard. So don't leave your church, people. Just take a walk around the block in the meantime. Another aspect of this was also, if you have, and we've talked about this before, if you have a Black doctor, you're more likely to live longer as well. Not only is it being seen and being heard, but you're more likely to be given the testing for preventive care, as opposed to if you had a white doctor. And even if you do not have a Black physician, if you're in an area that has a high number of Black physicians, you had a higher life expectancy as well.
But here's the other part in regards to that situation, Doc. How much does trust play into that, right? And I'm being completely serious here. Some of us do not trust the advice, the guidance, or any type of life-saving information if it comes from a Black person.
Mm-hmm.
That's how deep-seated the hatred, self-hatred can be in our country and in people. Mm-hmm. So how much of that is trust? Like, have you come across any information, or do you personally know that when Black folks go to see Black doctors, do we take it as the gospel the same way that we take the diagnosis of white doctors?
So that's an interesting thing, because I thought you were going, I wasn't sure which direction you were going with that. You were suggesting, do Black people trust Black doctors?
Yes.
So the research leans towards Black people trust Black doctors more, right?
Okay.
But I do, and I kind of want you to expound upon that a little bit, because I also know what you're, you're suggesting that you're suggesting really the self-hate that we've been taught. And that just because, I might have a Black family that comes in and I start, I don't know, doing whatever it is that I do, and they're kind of looking at me sideways, instead of feeling more safe and having more trust. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy, and then we are second guessing what I'm saying, because you think you believe a white doctor actually has more intelligence, more experience, more.
Right. And the fact that because we have such a dysfunction, I'm saying we as a people, as a collective, we have such a dysfunctional relationship with the healthcare community that we start to look at the Black doctor as like a pawn, as a mannequin, versus somebody who has gone through the training and the schooling and all of those things. And there's a little bit of hesitancy to believe, okay, if Black doctors may say, hey, yeah, I really think you got, something really serious going on. And our people be like, but you know what? I mean, I can expect that because you don't understand, you adopted, you're in a white man system. You know what I'm saying? It can get into a very, and I'm not saying it makes sense, Doc. I'm just trying to see.
You read my diary or something. I don't know. I mean, again, I didn't think we were going in this direction, but no, you are right. And it's upsetting and it's disappointing. And, you're saying that they're looking at the Black doctor like a pawn, but to be more direct, they look at the Black doctor as the sellout. And they look at the Black doctor as, what is it? The house.
Token? The house Negro, the token, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're just there because of whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like and I'm only asking. I don't have any numbers to verify saying that this is one way or the other. I'm just wondering, from your experience, has that been the case? Because I want to believe that our people, that if a Black medical professional comes before any one of us individually or collectively, that we understand that the Black medical professionals coming to us with some factual information, that they're keeping in mind all of the other issues related to the community. You know what I'm saying? The whole thing. I wanted to kind of get your take on it. I got to take a quick pause. When it comes back, I want to get that?
Oh man.
Huh?
You're leaving me like that?
Yeah, I'm leaving you like that for right now.
All right.
Just for like 30 seconds, 60 seconds.
Right.
I want you, because you were thinking one track and I took you on another track, and so I'm trying to get us back on track. Stay with me, folks. And Dr. Bridget. It's the culture here on the Black Star Network.
Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punch!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? When you talk about Blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it. This is about covering us. Invest in black-owned media. Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks. We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible. Check some money orders. Go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the Culture here on the Black Star Network. We've been checking in with Dr. Bridget, MD, for this week's Reclaim Your Wellness segment. And I'm throwing the doc a little curveball here, talking about, don't be looking like, but wondering, and this is just me just kind of thinking out loud, but do black folks have issues with black doctors? Do we have a trust issue, or is that just non-existent? So you were saying what, Doc? That the research shows that we do not have trust issues. Black folks, when we have black doctors in our network that we can go to. Nicole said, for example, she said she has 3 great black doctors. That's awesome.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yes.
I'm not trying to imply anything, Dr. Bridget.
No, you're speaking the truth. I think it's an important conversation, and I think it's something that we do need, because I've had all of those experiences, experiences. So I think it's important to shine a light on it. So I can handle it.
Okay, all right. So if we don't have any mistrust issues, we're essentially saying that if black folks had more black doctors, we may actually live a little longer.
Yes. Yeah.
And you're finding that in the research shows that in what areas, because you said it a little bit earlier, that depending on where you live, your life expectancy can either go up or could go down.
Right. And it tends to be in areas that more democratic places, you feel more comfortable, less stressed, you have more black doctors, whether you have the doctor or not. And so you have more preventive care. You're probably more seen. And you're not an anomaly when you walk into a building or into the doctor's office. And so you're probably getting better care despite if you have a black doctor or not. And so I highlighted a couple places here, and I can put in the Instagram live later some more of these locations so that people have a sense of it if they're looking for the best places to live black in America and live longer. But I think what you're suggesting, I think it goes back to trauma, and it goes back to not being seen. And everything that you have expressed, I've experienced. I've had the, experience of, walking into the room and the black patient being happy and relieved and relaxed and feel like they can finally say some of the things that they couldn't say before. And I've had the experience where I'm being side-eyed and, well, do you know that? And, why are you doing this? And I've had patients dissect what I was wearing more than what I was saying. Like, it just tearing each other apart, right? And so that is more of a result of distrust and trauma than it has anything to do with me. It's not me personally. I think we need to be more aware of what we're dealing with. And if we know what we're dealing with, we know how to respond to it. And so for many, it's me giving the space and time and attention to express themselves clearly, to make sure that no matter how they view healthcare, that I respond to that in a positive manner. And I take a slower road into doing the things that I think might be helpful for them, but always listening to what they think is most beneficial and how they see healthcare and what would work for them. So it should be a part of the job. I don't know necessarily if my colleagues are always in the same space with this.
Right.
But I think over time, seeing, some people might be very dismissive and say, if you don't like it, get out. But you're dealing with someone who has had bad experiences, not with me,
Absolutely.
had bad experiences. And so I can either give them one more bad experience and solidify this thing for them, or I can be patient.
Wow. So here's the piece around this study, what some people are calling astonishing, about this idea that with more Black doctors, Black people live longer.
Mm-hmm.
They said in statnews.com, the study published Friday in JAMA Network or Open is the first to link a higher prevalence of Black doctors to longer life expectancy and lower mortality in Black populations. Other studies have shown that when Black patients are treated by Black doctors, they are more satisfied with their health care,
right,
more likely to have received the preventive care they needed in the past year, and are more likely to agree to recommended preventive care, such as blood tests and flu shots. But none of that research has shown an impact on Black life expectancy.
Mm-hmm.
How come that doesn't show the impact?
I think what it goes down to is that it's one thing to get the testing.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing. It's another thing to follow through with life change.
You're talking about for the patients to follow through, for the patients to actually listen to their doctor.
Mm-hmm. It's one thing that you're more open to getting the testing, more agreeable, what have you. It's another thing that if I say, I think you might need this medication, or, you need to cut out the salt or change your diet or what have you. And if you're not following through on that end of it, the testing alone, doesn't do anything. Right.
Right.
So the healthcare model right now does not give time for people to build trust, right? And so if I am only seeing you in very quick intervals and giving you results, and nowadays I'm not even talking to you, I'm sending you the results over, in a text message on, in an app, and how is that going to support you in following through with the next step? It doesn't. And so a lot of the discussions I've been in lately is how do we build a better healthcare model, because this one's failing.
So what's the recourse? What's the next step or better action that Black folks collectively and us individually can take?
So
if we're finding.
Mm-hmm. So I think, first of all, it's having a doctor, finding a healthcare model, a doctor that you can trust. It might also mean that you have more than one, it might not just be all primary care, one physician. You might have functional medicine. You might have a naturopath. You might have some other aspects to, I'm always like, what's in your tool bag? Okay. And so you might have other advisors in your tool bag to balance out what you need. At the end of the day, it's always about balance. And if you're talking about life longevity, we need to create a life of purpose. We need to have a life of balance. And we need to look at the things that sometimes might not be best for you, but doing it in temperance instead of indulgence. And so whether that's food or alcohol or smoking, a little bit of anything isn't horrible, but a lot of mostly everything is bad, right?
Right.
And so finding that life of purpose, be in community with people in a world where we're now, I can't tell you how many text messages I got for Mother's Day way outweighed the phone calls, right? And so we're in a space where we don't necessarily interact anymore. And we're quick and we're fast and we're moving on to the next, and we're not really in community. Another aspect is, what are you doing on social media? We will find out way down the road how destructive it is. But by that time, it's already too late for us. And so how is this healthy for you? And having some balance with that as well. Now, of course, the most obvious things is get up and get moving. Make exercise on some level a regular part of your life. And, you know, a lot of these things are cliched and you've heard them 100 times, but you get up and you walk after dinner. You park in the back of the parking lot when you go to the mall or at work. You make healthy choices. If you're seeing, if it's too convenient, if you're seeing it in commercials, and if your neighbor is eating it, you probably shouldn't. Okay. You really need to look at what is best for your body and create a community of people that eat like you, so you can continue to eat that way. Right.
Even if they're not other people of your same community.
If they're healthy for you, yes. Right? Like you want to be around whatever community does not always have to look like you, but they should at the very minimum act like you, or how you would like to be seen and experience life, right? So depending on where you are and the experiences that you have, you can create community outside of when you're able to connect with really great people. It doesn't matter what color they are. When you're around beautiful souls feed you, right? And so sometimes we have to get beyond some of our experiences to let that in. But if you're around beautiful souls, that's what it's all about.
I love it. Doc, we got about a minute left as we have this conversation, and you covered so much. How can folks continue the discussion with you? Do we got an after chat tonight?
We're doing the after chat. So we go on at 5:30 on Instagram Live at Dr. Bridget, MD, and we continue this conversation. We can dig in more. We can make suggestions. We'll talk about other topics that you'd like to hear us talk about on this show, and really be able to make community, even if it's on social media.
Yep, absolutely. And Doc, folks, if you don't know about Dr. Bridget's work, she has been culturally, she is just right in the middle of the mix, talking about everything from the mainstream to the things that we talk about among the barbershops and in the beauty salons, that level of culture. So Dr. Bridget is covering a whole lot. Make sure y'all tune into her after chat this afternoon, 5:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on her Dr. Bridget MD Instagram page, and get the good information. Ask the thousands of questions, and more importantly, become empowered about how you can reclaim the wellness. Dr. Bridget, it's always a pleasure. I thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Farajii.
Absolutely. All right, folks, we got to take a quick pause. When we come forward, I got something for you for trends, posts, and doing the most. Stay with me. It's The Culture here on the Black Star Network.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and my new show, Get Wealthy, focuses on the things that your financial advisor and bank isn't telling you, but you absolutely need to know. So watch Get Wealthy on the Black Star Network.
I'm Farajii Muhammad, live from LA. And this is The Culture. The Culture is a two-way conversation. You and me. We talk about the stories, politics, the good, the bad, and the downright ugly. So join our community every day at 3 p.m. Eastern and let your voice be heard. Hey, we're all in this together. So let's talk about it and see what kind of trouble we can get into. It's The Culture. Weekdays at 3, only on the Black Star Network.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
All right, folks, welcome back to the show. Let me share with you one thing that I kept seeing all over the place that's trending right now. If you are a fan of Sports Illustrated, you know that they have their coveted, infamous Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. And they've been doing this for years. They show some of the world's top models in bikinis and in swimsuits, swimsuits and summer shots. But this year, they wanted to go do something different. And in an epic, as they described it, cover shoot, they decided to bring the likes of a person who you may have never thought would be on Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. They decided to get Martha Stewart. Yeah, that Martha Stewart. 81-year-old Martha Stewart, folks. She posed in the Dominican Republic for the shoot, and she got like 10 different shots that's going to be in Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition. She said, when I heard that I was going to be on the cover of Sports Illustrated swimsuit, I thought, oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to be the oldest person, I think, ever on a cover of Sports Illustrated. And she is at 81. And she said, I don't think about age very much, but I thought this is kind of historic. Well, she actually was a model. There it is. Let's show that in the big shot. This is 81-year-old Martha Stewart. And this is why I thought this was important, man. There is something that is happening to how we're living our life today, folks, which is why I'm so happy that we just had a conversation with Dr. Bridget about longevity and balance and all of that. Because people are actually living a little bit longer, right? Because they're in a different place. And, this is from Sports Illustrated, but there's also, if you look at some of our Black entertainers, Black celebrities, right? You can look at the likes of some of my favorite group of women, the Regina Kings, the Sanaya Lathan. Who else is in that group, y'all? Nia Long. These are women that are 50 plus and they don't look nothing like what we were used to back in the day. When we remember back in the day when you were saying that you were in your 40s and your 50s, it felt like, oh, you are old. 40s and 50s now, because I'm in that age, doesn't feel old. It doesn't. And I think it's interesting that now more and more people are embracing this idea that even the higher you get up in your age doesn't mean that your life is over, doesn't mean that you can't be comfortable in your own skin, doesn't mean that you can't showcase to the world that life is in your body at the age of 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years old. So I think that is interesting that we're seeing this kind of change in dynamics. And, I got to talk to Dr. Bridget about this one day to say, like, the changing attitudes that we have about age. Because when folks ask me about my age all the time, and I tell them, I'm like, oh, yeah. And they're like, you don't look that age. Because I don't think that way. I don't want to think that every time I get up out the bed in the morning, I'm like, oh, I'm closer to that day, You don't have to think that way. So age, in some cases, it can be seen as just a number. But it's interesting that Martha Stewart has decided that she's going to jump back into the modeling biz just for a quick moment. And she got afforded this opportunity. But it now is causing a lot of people to open the conversation up about age, who should be, what's age, what does a number have to do with how you see yourself, how you think about yourself. Trust and believe. And folks say stuff like, you know the old saying, black don't crack and all of that stuff, right? In some cases, that is true. Other cases, is not true. It comes down to how you live. And that's one of the great things that we were talking about with Dr. Bridget just a moment ago. If you live in a place that you feel at ease, that you can get some rest, that you don't feel like the heaviness of racism and sexism and oppression is on your mind and your body and your spirit, you're going to live longer. If you eat better. I saw you, Real Brooklyn, you and your Popeye's chicken, bro. Come on, man. We'd like to fix that, sir. But if you're eating better, that is going to affect your age and how you see yourself. So we should take more pride and greater investment in making sure that our life is going to be extended longer. But even if we say, okay, I live to be 90, 95 years old, 100 years old, does that mean that you have to be broken down and all decrepit and looking crazy and all of those things? The spirit of life can be sustained, folks, if we decide that we're going to sustain it. It can be sustained. It can be there. We don't have to, we don't want to fight against Father Time, right? But we definitely want to live better according to the time. So big shout out to all of those who are older. I see you, Martha Stewart. Go ahead and do what you do on the cover of Sports Illustrated. But this is, seeing Martha Stewart on Sports Illustrated, just little weird. But it's all good. It is what it is. But for us, in our culture, in our communities, let's take care of ourselves, folks. You may not end up on the cover of Sports Illustrated, but trust and believe you will be living a much longer and healthier and happier life. All right, folks, that's it for Trends Post and Doing the Most. And that's it for the show today. Big shout out to my dynamic crew, my producers, Joel, my guy, King Keenan, who's making everything happen, the control room. Also, I want to give a big shout out to the voices that we had today, Dr. Jason Nichols, and of course, Dr. Bridget ND, and of course, to you, my crew. Thank you. Make sure you do your due diligence. Go to blackstarnetwork.com. Show your love, show your support as we are looking for financial donors to continue this great movement here, this digital media platform, a place that you know that we will have conversations unlike any other space. So make sure you do your due diligence. Support us today. Download the app for free. Share the content. And, of course, follow us on social media at Black Star Network. Also, follow me on social media. I'm dropping this new promo that my man Keenan put together. Woo! Hot! I'm dropping that on social media today. Letting folks know, if you ain't tuning into the culture, something's really, really wrong with you. So, big shout out to him for making that happen. Thank you, sir. And of course, thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned. Up next is Roland Martin Unfiltered. As always, never be afraid to challenge what's wrong. Stand for what's right while being yourself in the process. God willing, we will talk tomorrow for another exciting edition of The Culture right here, exclusively here, only here, the Black Star Network. Have a great afternoon and evening. Peace.